morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Well, I've been spending a lot of hours in the saddle lately, making up for lost time, I guess. And the older I get, the more I appreciate and am grateful for the little things that make a rancher's day. And that's what this week's Cowboy Poetry Spotlight really expresses better than I can.
You're thankful for sunrise and calves that will suck, and frosty March mornings on a horse that won't buck.
And Baxter Black has his answer to some very interesting questions.
Does the price of a first calf heifer affect a cowman's responsibility to her well-being?
On the Rangeland News, a lot of information you can use, I hope.
Most of the nation's feedlots have been losing quite a bit of money over the last 4 or 5 months.
And on the horse training file, something different. A horse has Cushing's disease. What is it? And can the horse still be ridden? Well, hopefully we'll be able to help. And I have another old classic Song of the West and the story behind the song, and I'll visit with Dave McClure after the great Texas songwriter Donnie Blant starts us off.
I've been out riding toward the mountains, looking for that herd of wild horses, 'cause if I catch 'em, I can sell them in town. With a little gold I could buy a little piece of ground. I thought I had 'em in Devil's Canyon. I must have chased them half a mile. My horse stumbled. Oh, and we went down. I could almost taste it, that little piece of ground. I'll build a barn and a cabin. I'll dig the post holes. I'll string the barbed wire fence. I'll do the hard work, Lord, if you just bless me with a place to begin. I'll build a barn and a cabin. I'll dig the post holes. I'll string the barbed wire fence. I'll do the hard work, Lord, if you just bless me with a place to begin. The whole town knows me, but they don't see me. Their kind only sees the money that a man is spending when he comes around. But I'd be somebody with that little piece of ground. So we'll go back riding toward the mountains, looking for that herd of wild horses.
Well, Donnie Bland co-wrote some great songs with his good friend Ed Bruce, and he writes some good ones himself, like that one, A Little Piece of Ground. Boy, it was good to see Dave McClure back at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. What a talented guy, great keyboard player, singer, songwriter, poet, and he runs a fine family ranch in Washington State.
Hey, Dave McClure, good to see you back here in Kamloops.
Good
Thanks
to see
for leaving your calving operation and stepping up to do this. How's calving going?
We're about 80% done, and the kids come home from college or spring break, so they got to cover while I got to come up here one more time.
Oh, isn't that nice? So
2 years in a row is kind of a record for me, you know.
That's right. It doesn't happen to too many performers that are honored enough to get. They keep asking me back every year because they say I'm going to keep coming back till I finally get it right. So, well, that's going to happen.
Well, hopefully Dave Longworth will be better, and he'll be back here next year. I'm just filling in for him.
I told him he had a bit of a head cold, and I said if you want to keep a head cold from spreading to your chest, you just tie a knot in your neck. But any twins or
one set of twins, and kind of covered one that missed one and that died the morning before. So I'm still.
Are you still 100%?
Still 100%.
That's good. No uterine prolapses or anything.
Yeah, we had that 3 days ago, right before. Usually it happens the day before of that coming up here, but it happened a few days, so we got to put that back together. And she's
so did
fine.
you save the calf and
save the calf? Save the cow.
Oh, man.
That's what we do.
That's an operation that's like taking a water-filled balloon and trying to push it through a keyhole.
Well, was whoever invented the way to hook onto their hind legs with a loader and pick it up, and so you actually got gravity working for you, and then you pour about 30 gallons of water, and the rear end puts the uterine horns back where they're supposed to be, and they don't push anymore, and then you turn them loose. We were in the middle of that operation one time when neighbor seen the gate open. He drove in as we were pouring water in this old cow, and he says, "What the heck are you guys doing?" I looked over my shoulder and said, "She won't drink."
Yeah, force feeding her.
Well, last summer, massive wildfires tore through the region where Dave runs his cattle, and he'll tell us what that was like. And you'll hear one of the best arrangements of a good song written by a fellow that actually rode for a few ranches around here at one time, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Washington State rancher Dave McClure joins us this week, and the subject is not a pretty one. For this segment, we're discussing the various ways of dealing with a calving complication known as a uterine prolapse. That's when the calf is born and the contractions continue, and the cow keeps on pushing until her uterus is pushed inside out, right outside of her body. And most ranchers have a fair amount of experience in dealing with it.
One time I just finished doing all of that. Of course, you're down on your hands and knees. I didn't have a loader, but I had the cow up on her haunches. And you push with your hands in one side and the other side pops out. You push this side in and the other side pops out. Finally, you got your head there and you're pushing it. And I very seldom wear anything but a cowboy hat, but I was wearing a baseball cap on this particular day and finally got it back in, got her sewed up. And the only thing that bothered me is after that I could never find my cap. And then the next spring that cow calved again, and out comes this little bull calf wearing a Spirit of the West bull cap.
Well, that's pretty good advertisement for you, Hugh.
You went through quite an ordeal with those wildfires in that valley.
Yeah, it happened about the North Star fire started about 8 miles from home, about a mile from my grandpa's homestead cabin. And then there was another called, I can't remember what the name of the fire was, but together they burned over 500,000 acres down there. And it was so dry and the wind blowing, it was insane. And then if we could just stop the firefighters from lighting backfires, we would have had it out a couple months ahead before then. But we didn't lose any buildings, a lot of timber and a lot of rangeland, but we got places to go with cows this spring. A lot of fence to build, but we came through it pretty good. Some guys got a lot worse than we did. But
you didn't lose any cattle?
I lost 8 head.
8? Wow. And others burned or singed? Or
one bull that had some burn marks on him, but I was pretty amazed. They know where to find them old beaver dams to hide out in and survive something like that. I mean, the 40-mile-an-hour winds, 60-foot tall trees just crowning and blowing through it. Sound like a freight train coming at you. It's intense.
And the smoke must have been just, hard to even breathe or anything.
Well, I said a month after the fire, it says nice not to have to chew your air before you breathe it.
Isn't that right?
Yeah. Okay, we'll get back to Dave in just a minute or two. Roy Robinson has cowboyed all over the country from Texas to BC, played music all over the country too, and he's a talented writer and a spur maker. But back in 1987, he wrote a great song, and a friend of Garth Brooks, who is now touring with Brett Kessel, by the way, found a manuscript of the song in a garbage can and passed it on to Garth. Garth loved the song, recorded it, it became a huge hit. But I just love this version from Cecil B. Craven's The Bridge Between the Verses and the key change really make it work for me on the Cowboy Song.
Pushing horns weren't easy like the movie said it was. I don't remember dance hall girls or hotel rooms with rugs. You worked hot and tired and nasty, rode your pony's head too low. All them nights you couldn't sleep, 'cause it was too damn cold, and we'd sing Strawberry Roan and Little Joe. Like the time we hit the river and the rain begun to fall, the water's rising so damn fast we thought it'd drown us all. We lost a lot of steers that day and 4 or 5 good mounts, but when all the boys rode into camp, we knew that's what counts, and we'd sing whoopee-tie-yi-yi and Amazing Grace. They broke behind us and they took us by surprise. I whistled out to Bonner, I saw the terror in his eyes. Now he rode for all his horse would ride. I know he done his best, but he crossed over Jordan, riding Dunny to his death. And we'd sing, bringing in the sheaves and the rugged cross. Now when you see the cowboy, he's not ragged by his choice. He never meant to bow them legs or put that gravel in his voice. Just chasing what he really loves was burning in his soul, wishing to hell that he'd been born 100 years ago, still singing Strawberry Roan and Little Joe. Still singing Strawberry Roan and Little Joe.
A little later today, you'll hear a really different song that I think will resonate with real cowboys everywhere and with those who just love the life but have never lived it. Really thoughtful, reflective song and the story of what inspired it from Ryan Fritz. But right now, let's get back to Dave McClure.
How's your moisture situation this winter?
130% above normal this year in the Cascades down there.
That's looking good.
Yeah. But we're on the ground seems to be soaking up all the water instead of sloughing and sliding. So it looks like we're going to cross our fingers, looking good.
That's for sure. And what's on your agenda as soon as you get back? Probably finishing up calving?
Like I said, I got 27 miles of fence to rebuild and some farming to do and get ready for spring. So I'm not going to be touring much this summer, but...
Well, keep on telling those great stories.
Well, I might be putting something on Facebook. I got an idea I got an old shack that I live in during calving season. I'm going to make kind of a Thursday night cow camp concerts, little blurps, and throw them on Facebook. It's kind of keep my arts going, and I don't have to go any place. So
that's neat. You take your piano into that little.
Well, it's a keyboard. It doesn't,
But you take it in there.
I can, yeah.
Oh, neat. Oh, good seeing you, Dave.
Good seeing you, too.
Hope the rest of your cabin goes well.
Thank you, my friend. Always good.
Good stuff. All right. We'll face the camera.
And if you just go to our homepage at hugh-mclennan.com, you'll see that picture that Billy took of us while we were visiting there at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. Next, Baxter Black looks at some very interesting moral and ethical questions about ranching. Got a song that I always love to play at this time of year. And then the Rangeland News when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, with a little peek at the best of times and the worst of times. What makes America the most productive, generous country on earth? Well, it's ordinary people like us working together to achieve extraordinary things. B&W builds the trailer hitches that hook the loads that haul the grain, the coal, the cattle, cotton, gas, horses, and RVs that keep America on the road. Quality made, employee-owned, and customer-tuned. B&W trailer hitches working together to keep America proud.
It is the best of times.
Calving at its finest, the calling of those chosen to tend God's creatures, to take part in simple miracles, to alter the balance of life on earth by one small addition.
It is the worst of times.
Calving in the midst of a winter when one needs a depth finder to see the top of the market, when it's less worrisome to lose oneself in the task of daily responsibilities easing the burden of birth than it is thinking about the price of next fall's overcrowded wiener crop. A dilemma, some would say. But does knowing the decreased value of beef make a cowman think less of that heifer in trouble, or of that new calf laying in the straw? Does her dollar price somehow affect her value as a creation, as a work of art, planned, worked for, and created by a cowman, a cow, and God? Does the price of a first calf heifer affect a cowman's responsibility to her well-being? Does his effort, concentration, and skill decrease when she's calving in a falling market? Does he try harder to get a live calf if she's worth more at the sale? These questions are best answered not philosophically or hypothetically, but in reality. At 3 a.m., when you hook the chains to the newborn feet and start to pull, does cost cross your mind? When you rub the calf down and push him under the flank, do you see dollar signs? When you gaze at the turnout field and see cows grazing contentedly while calves chase each other around them, do you get a good feeling? Or are you too occupied with their price to appreciate what you're seeing? The dilemma I'm presenting really isn't much of a problem for most cow people I know. The calving barn is a long way in time and miles and thought from the auction ring. After all, we tend to our flocks in bad weather, hard times, illness, chapped hands, aching backs, mad patience, and yes, bad markets. I think when we lay down in the straw or the mud behind a heifer needing help, the price per pound is the farthest thing from our mind. So in spite of all the well-meaning and correct consultants who keep reminding us that what we do is a business, it is also, beyond any doubt, a way of life. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by B&W Turnover Bowl.
This is cowboy singer, songwriter, and poet Bren Hill. Cowboy poetry is the voice of the working West, as alive today as it has been for over 125 years, telling the stories of real ranch life. Learn more about it and Cowboy Poetry Week at cowboypoetry.com, a project of the Center for Western and Cowboy Poetry.
Well, we sure missed this guy at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival. He had a nasty cold, a fever, and just couldn't get there. And I know a lot of folks who are looking forward to one of his signature songs. Matt Johnson and his wife Ursula run a fine trail riding operation near Wells Gray Park in British Columbia. And you can find out all about riding in this gorgeous part of the world with Matt and Ursula at www.westernriding-bc.com. And the best part of a trail ride with them is being there to listen to Matt playing his guitar and singing his original cowboy songs around the fire. Now, here's the one that folks always like hearing at this time of year.
Well, I know this stretch has been a long one. Oh, honey, I can feel it too. But it'll be another month or more till calving time is through. 200 head of Hereford bred, and it's time for me to make the rounds. I promise I'll take you into town when that last calf hits the ground. Well, all the first calvers are in from the field now, and I put them all out there in the pen. If you can do the rounds at 8, I'll do the rounds at 10. I've gotta get some shut-eye, darling, but wake me if you find one down. I promise I'll take you into town when that last calf hits the ground. When the last calf hits the ground, I'm gonna take you to that fancy place in town. We can wine and dine and pass the time, romancing and laying around. When the last calf hits the ground. Now the weather's been holding out just fine, and the bull calf numbers are high. Pray the prices are good this fall. If they are, then we'll get by. 200 head of Hereford bred, and darling, I'm almost done the rounds. I promise I'll take you into town when that last calf hits the ground. When the last calf hits the ground, I'm gonna take you to that fancy place in town. We can wine and dine and pass the time, romancing and laying around. When the last calf hits the ground, oh darling, when the last calf hits the ground.
The news of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West. We'll tell you what's new under the western sky right after this word from the cattlemen of Western Canada.
BC cattle producers have funded food safety research throughout Western Canada to help develop new methods of delivering high-quality, safe beef products. This ensures that beef has the same great quality at your local meat counter as it does when it leaves the ranch.
Now, the Rangeland News. Top of page 1, the gap between the price feedlots pay for feeder cattle and the price they get from packers for finished cattle is getting smaller. And with the rest of that story, here's Gary Crawford.
Most of the nation's feedlots have been losing quite a bit of money over the last 4 or 5 months, and indeed,
returns to feedlots are still negative, but they are not as bad as they were several months ago.
Well, that's something anyway. Agriculture Department livestock analyst Shale Shagam, calling us from Texas, told us things are starting to turn around a little bit for feedlot operators.
We've seen the price of feeder calves come down. Early this week, feeder calves, about 750-pound feeder calves in Oklahoma, were selling at about $159 a hundredweight, and that's down from about $212 a year ago. On the other hand, fed cattle were running about $141 a hundredweight, which was down from about $160 a year ago.
But the gap between the price that feedlots are paying for feeders and the price they're getting for fed cattle seems to be getting smaller. Also, Shagam says even though feeder cattle prices are lower, margins for cow-calf operators continue positive. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Canadian farm incomes look set to fall in 2016 after a year of record profits, but will still reach above average levels, according to a report from the federal government. Rising receipts for crops and livestock have boosted incomes in recent years due to greater demand in developing countries and a weak Canadian dollar. A report from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada said lower crude oil prices have also cut farmers' expenses. And Canadian Pacific Railway has successfully appealed a $50,000 penalty for failing to meet a government-imposed grain shipping target in 2014. The fine was levied after a Transport Canada investigation determined that CP failed to meet a government-imposed mandate requiring the railway to move at least 536,000 tons of Western Canadian grain per week. CP appealed the fine early last year, and the Transportation Appeal Tribunal upheld the appeal in a decision handed down earlier this month. And just in case you missed it, Nevada cowboy Nick Dowers was the winner of the Road to the Horse Colt Starting Championship in Kentucky, beating out former champions Richard Winters and Clinton Anderson. And speaking of colt starting competitions, I'll be back behind the mic for the 10th annual main event Trainers Challenge in Red Deer, Alberta, April 21st to 24th. 4 trainers this year: Doug Mills, Steve Rother, Patrick King, and Scott Purdom. New Mexico cowboy and noted artist Gary Morton's painting, A Life Less Ordinary, has been selected as the 2016 Cowboy Poetry Week image. Gary Morton comments on the painting by saying that cowboy life is never boring. Most of the West is still worked on horseback. Days are long and the weather is sometimes a challenge. These cowpunchers saddled up and rode out when daylight was just a promise on the eastern horizon. They have been in a high trot to get back side in order to make a drive. The cow boss is scattering the riders, and each will gather the cattle back to the roundup. It requires a sure-footed horse and a good hand to handle the job. He adds that the painting is from the 06 ranch in the Davis Mountains in far west Texas, and one of the riders pictured is the popular poet and cowboy Ray Fitzgerald. You can see that image at cowboypoetry.com, and that's where you'll find out all the information about Cowboy Poetry Week, April 17th to the 23rd. Oh yeah, good news for fans of the most popular Sunday evening family TV series since Bonanza. Heartland fans, your favorite family drama has been renewed by the CBC for a 10th season. Next season will have a full order of 18 episodes. And the next horse sale at the Innisfail Auction Market is Saturday, April 16th. Tax starts selling at 9, horses come through the ring at noon, and there are regular cattle sales every Wednesday. You can get all the details at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And the next horse sale at the BC Livestock Co-op in Kamloops is April 29th. To consign your horses, call the co-op 250-573-3939. And guess what? We're down to the final item. And my neighbor's wife had to go for a driver's exam the other day, and I guess she didn't pass the written part. She told us one of the questions was, in a vehicle, if this is dead, the engine won't start. I guess my answer was wrong, she said. I wrote down the driver. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Horse Training File, we'll look at a horse with Cushing's disease and what they need and whether or not the horse can still be ridden. And you'll hear a different but fascinating song of the West and what inspired Ryan Fritz to write that song when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Cushing's disease is a fairly common affliction of older horses, and a listener has a horse with that condition. She wants to know more about it and if she can still ride the horse. So we'll take a good look at that on the Horse Training File, coming right up. First, though, for those of you who've been asking about the next Spirit of the West cruise, I'm happy to tell you that it will take place in June of 2017, and the whole gang will be going
way up north to Alaska, way up north to Alaska, north to Alaska, we're going north for Russia's home. North to Alaska, we're going north for Russia's home.
That's right. My wife Billy and I will be hosting a great group of Spirit of the Westers aboard the beautiful Holland America ship, the Noordam, and we'll sail out of the spectacular Vancouver Harbor visiting Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Glacier Bay, and then we'll have 2 spectacular days of sightseeing in Denali National Park. Then we'll board the magnificent McKinley Railroad with their sightseeing dome cars and hopefully have a good look at North America's highest peak, Mount McKinley. And then it's on to Anchorage. We'll have our Western music concerts, sing-alongs, great food, and it's a trip that's been on the bucket list of a lot of folks for a long time. And this is important. You can save over $200 a person if you book before the 1st of May 2016 this year. Hey, that's a $400 savings per couple. And the whole package includes return airfare from Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, and includes ground transfers in Vancouver and Anchorage, plus all of our Spirit of the West group gatherings, all port and government taxes, all onboard meals, entertainment, and room service, and a special group reception, lots of networking opportunities, our special Spirit of the West gifts, the highly coveted Spirit of the West t-shirt, and a special Spirit of the West tour just for our group in Juneau. Now here's something else. If you like traveling by rail, we have an optional Rocky Mountaineer rail package to travel from Calgary to Vancouver, available on request. Our entire schedule with prices and everything else is available on the cruise page at our website, hugh-mclennan.com. And you can get all the information at this toll-free number, 1-800-530-0131. And just hold the phones. I just heard from our cruise director Jim Bell with this news. If you book for our 2017 Alaska cruise before April 15th, 2016, and that's just in a couple of weeks, if you put your deposit in before that, you will only have to put down 50% of the usual deposit, and you'll receive between $50 and $100 in shipboard spending credits. And that number again is 1-800-530-0131. Okay, here's the horse training file. Someone please help me. My horse has Cushing's and I don't know a good riding routine for him, she says. And it's also the horse is 24 years old. At such a fragile age, I'm worried about hurting him. My usual routine is to walk, trot, controlled trot, lope, and then we'll go for a trail ride. Is this good, or should some things be changed? Please give me some hints. Signed, Aaron. Well, Aaron, the news isn't really good. Cushing's disease is most frequently found in older horses, and horses with this condition are easily recognized by a heavy, coarse, wavy hair coat that fails to shed out in the summer. And the first symptom to appear generally is excessive thirst coupled with excessive urination, which might go unnoticed if the animal's kept outside rather than stabled. Horses might go through as much as 80 liters of water a day instead of the normal 20 to 30. Other symptoms can include a swayback or pot-bellied appearance, increased appetite but with no corresponding increase in weight gain, loss of muscle over the top line, and chronic laminitis or founder. Horses with Cushing's syndrome become more susceptible to diseases and infections due to a compromised immune system. They frequently suffer bouts of respiratory disease, skin infections, foot abscesses, ulcers in their mouth, and periodontal disease. And even infections of the tendon sheath or joints. Wound healing is also noticeably slowed. Now, maintaining a horse with Cushing's syndrome also requires an owner to focus on careful health management and preventative care. Particular care should be paid to diet, vaccinations, deworming, and teeth maintenance, as well as prompt response to infections, and some horses might require body clipping in the summer months. There are some medications that can help, but before asking too much of your horse by riding him, I would strongly advise you to consult your vet. And that's the horse training file. We're so fortunate that my good old buckskin mare Lucky is still happy and healthy and sound, and she's approaching 30 years of age. We're not even sure how old she is, but she's way up there, and we think that daily feeding of Hoffman's horse ration has a lot to do with it. You can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. And that's the horse training file. These horses are headed to the 3rd annual Top Gun Horse Sale, the largest selection of broke horses offered for sale in Western Canada. Preview April 16th at 5 p.m. Sale starts April 17th at High Noon Calnash Event Center, Ponoka, Alberta. Riding, roping, ranch, trail, barrel racing, team sorting, kids' horses, broke teams, young stock, and much more. Rain or shine, everything is inside. For more information, see TopGunHorseSales.com or call Jordan, 403-783-0246. Well, Ryan Fritz is one cowboy who's been there and done it. He's earned his spurs as a working cowboy for many years on some of the biggest ranches in the West, and he now runs a fine cattle operation in Saskatchewan with his family. His gift for writing great songs just seems to be growing, and his songs are all inspired by the real-life experiences of a working cowboy. And I just had to ask him what inspired the song War Horse, the last track on his new Keeper of the West CD.
The last track, is it War Horse?
War Horse, yeah.
Now that's different.
Yeah, that one came to me, I guess a fall or two ago. And, it's funny when you're riding in camp and or just anything, on your ranch. As a cowboy, you're secluded and your thoughts are secluded. You're focused on, and that's the life you want to live, is on a horse chasing cattle. But, the way things go sometimes in the world, those outside news kind of even find a cowboy out on the range. And that's how that song come about.
Chain swaying with the weight of braided reins, flies scatter with the shake of sorrow mane. Usually puts my mind at ease as I ride home, a gentle breeze blown like today. But not today. A rancher watching over these hills for land and cow is just a part of a crazy world that's full of unrest now. And some would bring on us the wicked of their ways. And a man can't ride on like he's safe on his home range. War horse, will we ride again? War horse, watching from the distance like a lion from his den. War horse remembered and honored with man, but winds fire up his flaxen mane as he stands watch over the land. War horse, war horse, riding past the cedar posts that first fenced these lands. They're looking like soldiers all in a line, making a stand. Some of them have fallen, lie buried in the sand. But the old one's still standing there like a reminder of this great land. War horse, will we ride again? War horse, watching from the distance like a lion from his den. And war horse remembered and honored with man, but winds fire up his flaxen mane as he stands watch over the land. War horse, war horse remembered and honored with man, but winds fire up his flaxen mane as he stands watch over the land. War horse, war horse, chain swinging with the weight of braided reins.
Warhorse. Wow, Ryan, that's a powerful song.
You know, sort of the looming possibilities of what could happen. And also, you know, thinking about our veterans and the horses that went to war. And that's how that song came about. And you can kind of, if you listen to it, you can just kind of see how I'm riding back to camp. Your horse is a little tired, so you got lots of time to think and watch things. And that song just came together as, you know, sort of a tribute to that.
Yeah, it's a powerful song.
Thank you, yeah, I played that one down at Elko.
Well received on
that. Yeah, it was really good.
Coming up, more of that pure Western music you love so much, including this week's classic Song of the West, and then a pretty neat piece of cowboy poetry when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Got a beautiful classic Western song coming up, but right now, here's a more recent one. Written by Texas rancher Gary Prescott, sung by Butch Falk, called Strike a Lope.
As the cattle all bed down for the evening, that old sun disappears behind the hill. An eagle cries out high above me, and I turn up my collar to the evening chill. I've been riding pastures for a week now, 7 long days that I've been gone. This cowboy's mind keeps on stampeding to the woman he loves waiting there at home. So strike a lope and let's hit the trail, old partner. We'll fly like the wind while there's still light, across the miles that we're apart, to the one that owns my heart. We gotta make it home by tonight. Grass is stirrup deep across the meadow, and the cattle wintered fine again this year. This springtime riding lifts a cowboy spirit. The master's touch is everywhere out here. The flowers on the hillside are blooming. Winter's cold is just a memory. It's got this cowboy dreaming of a sweetheart and one last kiss beneath the live oak tree. So strike a lope and let's hit the trail, old partner. We'll fly like the wind while there's still light, across the miles that we're apart, to the one that owns my heart. We gotta make it home by tonight. Cowboy moon is hanging over the mountains. Somewhere in the distance a coyote bays. His hoofbeats echo softly down the canyon. The twinkling stars all come out to play. It's been too long since I've seen my darling. I miss her more every time I'm gone. But the distance between our hearts is getting closer, and it won't be long until we make it home. So strike a lope and let's hit the trail, old partner. We'll fly like the wind while there's still light, across the miles that we're apart, to the one that owns my heart. We gotta make it home by tonight. Looks like we're gonna make it home tonight.
week, we take a look at a classic song of the West in this segment, and I am looking at my copy of Cowboy Songs and Other Frontier Ballads collected by John and Alan Lomax and printed and published in 1938. On page 60, Alan Lomax says, I made up this song while I was night herding for the Wiley Cattle Company in Yellowstone Park. One morning in the spring of 1909, Harry Stevens leaned over the gate of my home on the campus of Texas A&M and said, Professor, I've come to say goodbye. Grass is a-rising and I gotta move on. And he left this beautiful song behind. Harry Stevens, claiming authorship of this song, told John Lomax, well, we always had the night herd years ago when they didn't have so many fences and corrals, and that was the biggest job for a cowboy. We generally have a 2-hour shift and 2 to 4 men on a shift according to the size of the herd. And you know, it's surprising how quiet the herd will be as long as they can hear the human voice. And now with that in mind, here's my favorite version of this old classic sung a cappella in 4-part harmony by the great cowboy quartet, the Bar J Wranglers, the Night Herding Song.
Slow up, dogies, quit roving around. You have wandered and trampled all over the ground. Oh, graze along, dogies, and feed kinda slow. And don't always be on the go. Move slow, little dogies. Move slow. Lay still, little doggies, since you have laid down. Stretch away out on the big open ground. Snore loud, little doggies, and drown the wild sound. It will go when the day rolls around. Lay still, little doggies. Lay still. Lay still.
Well, we're about a week late with this one. Time for the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight now, and I realize that we're actually into April, but I thought this one would still work all right. This is Tom Angle and the Winds of March.
The winds of March come riding down. 1 minute they smile, the next they frown. The bite of winter, then the soft touch of spring, but in March a cowboy can feel like a king. Hit the saddle at daybreak, it's frosty and clear. Old pony steps lightly on ice like a mirror. The wind blows your collar up under your hat. It'd plumb freeze the ears off Grandma's brass cat. Ride around the heifers and check every one. Pull a calf in a snowbank, my gosh, ain't this fun. Rub him dry with a gunny sack and head for your nag. Little heifer tries to hook you, the ungrateful old bag. Little calf nurses as the sun tops the rim, and you kinda warm up just looking at him. You're thankful for sunrise and calves that will suck, and frosty March mornings on a horse that won't buck. You're sorry for town folk, though they drive fancy cars. They go see their analyst, then head for the bars. So you work in cow country and you drive an old truck. Find your joy sitting horseback watching baby calves suck. When March winds blow soft, a man feels at peace. New calves and green grass, you take a new lease. On a life lived on horseback, it must be your thing, 'cause in March, a cowboy feels like a king.
Well, thank you so much for riding along, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. Thanks again to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan, and you can find out all about them at meadowsprings.com. And you know, there's great reading in the latest issue of Alberta Beef Magazine. You can subscribe online at albertabeef.ca or just call 403-250-1090. And be sure and check out the latest issue of Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at your newsstand, or subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com or call 1-800-943-7336. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan and hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.